This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
And good morning, good afternoon, wherever the case may be, depending on where you happen to be. If you're in the West, as am I, at 9 o'clock in the morning on a beautiful sunny day here in Los Angeles. And I hope wherever you are, it is also a beautiful sunny Sunday. Anyway, you're here with me for the next 30 minutes. You're on Pet Life Radio's Ask the Vets with Dr. Jeff, the only live call-in show here on Pet Life Radio. And that means it's live. That means you can call in. We want to hear from you. And call-in is kind of like the old term. I'm going to give you an option to do that anyway. Calling in, it's 877-385-8882. Write that number down. 877-385-8882. Better way is log on to PetLifeRadio.com. Click on shows, Ask the Vets with Dr. Jeff, and you'll see a link left there by Mark Winter, our producer. And you can click on that link and join us live here on Google Hangouts. That means have your pet with you, sitting on your lap, or if it's a big dog, not on your lap. And let's talk anything you want to talk about. We're here for you. We're here to help you solve problems, help you better understand a problem your pet might be having, maybe communicate a little better than your veterinarian may be doing so. I get that a lot. Someone will come in and I'm a second opinion. And I just do my normal education, basically. I like to educate people what the problems are, because when they understand the root of a problem, then they're A, more likely to want to go ahead and treat it. And B, they'll be better at treating it at home, doing it with their share. We call it client compliance. They become more compliant when they understand the basis of a problem. And also, so often I get, oh my God, it's never been explained to me like that. So there's something to it. It makes you better at what you do as being a pet parent when you understand some of these processes, how they work, why we do what we do. I just think it makes it a lot better. As many of you know who are regular listeners, first of all, thank you very much. First of all, we want to hear from you. You know what? You can do me a favor today, just for the heck of it. I had a great discussion 2 weeks ago, and it was so open for a conversation from you, from all of you. And people are so embarrassed. So you can either call me, 877-385-8882. Better yet, join me online. Another option you have is just to send me a quick note here to Dr. Jeff, Dr. Jeff at PetLifeRadio.com. But for the sake of kind of see if this works, are you out there? Are you even listening? Are you in front of your computer? I want you to log on just to say hi, just to make sure it works. We're setting up some of my celebrity clients to come on as guests, and we want to get used to the process, because I would imagine that you're going to want to log on then and talk to them personally. How often are you going to get a chance to do that? You're not going to get a chance to do that. So I know what it's like, because I do it all the time, but it would really be cool for you to just get so adept at this, to make sure your Google Hangouts works, make sure your computer works. So go ahead and just log on to PetLifeRadio.com, Ask the Vets with Dr. Jeff on the tab for shows, and click on that link for Google Hangouts and just test it out. So I do want to talk about something today, but as you know, I like to go through some of the interesting news stories that I pick up. I just got back from the American Veterinary Medical Association. I was there in Denver last week. It was great. And thus the AVMA Smart Brief, a news source that I really like, because it gives you a lot of up-to-date stuff, a lot of stuff that are important to us and things you should know about. Like this first one. Here's a good one. Boutique pet foods may be taurine lacking. In other words, taurine is an essential amino acid. Dogs can usually make their own. Cats cannot, which is why it's so important for cats to eat their own meat diet. It comes from meat, but it is deficient in many of the foods that we are now feeding our pets. And that can cause a condition called dilated cardiomyopathy. And where do we see this taurine deficiency? No surprise, because if you're listening to my show, you know these are some of the issues that we bring up often. Raw diets, home-cooked diets that are not properly balanced, and veggie diets. So, we have learned, and we've told you, and I've told you, and I've learned when I was in school, that yes, a dog can be a vegetarian. But when we see that there are certain dogs that may not make enough of their own taurine, and we are not giving it to them in the meat sources, then they can be subjected to this dilated cardiomyopathy, which can be deadly. So again, don't do any of this stuff without speaking with your veterinarian. Better yet, a veterinary nutritionist. There are many out there. So I think that's something just to, kind of keep in mind. One thing about cats, we talked about cats and eating. Well, interestingly, cats we know are finicky. And sometimes you put stuff in their bowl and you think they like it. They've eaten it before, but now they're just not eating it. Does that mean that they're not hungry? Does that mean they're now sort of losing that taste for that food? That was something they like, now they don't like anymore? Well, guess what? Cats like to play and to hunt. So sometimes you have to be a little bit more creative and sort of get that food for them to eat, but they have to work for it. They have to hunt for it. And so whether it's got to be like a challenge. You can't just open the can, stick it in the bowl, and walk away. So just something to think about when you have that cat that's becoming a little bit more finicky than normal. It could be that it just wants to play, wants to hunt. Give it something to do. Also, speaking of cats and diets, we know that cats traditionally are not great water drinkers. So as they get older, we have some problem. Obviously, one of the biggest killer of old cats is kidney failure, kidney disease. And sometimes they're smart enough, they'll go to a water bowl and drink. But what we need to do is we need to actually maybe start adding some canned food. Even if you have a cat that likes dry food a lot, and hopefully they do, you might want to do something, add some canned food to their diet as well. Because what canned food will do, it is but 70% water. So it's good for them. And in fact, during the heat, during the summertime, I'm even an advocate of giving dogs some canned food as well. Yes, dogs are drinkers. They'll go out and they'll drink when they're thirsty, but that may not be enough, depending on the rest of their health status. They think it's enough. They get filled, but it may not be enough for them to satisfy their requirements for hydration. They get dehydrated, and that can lead to a lot of problems. So think about what I like to call mixed feeding, and that is find some good canned food, mushy canned food. Trust me, most of the dogs are going to like it, and mix up a little bit in with their dry food as well. I thought this was a really nice story. In Omaha, Nebraska, there were donations to equip Omaha firefighters with kits to save pets' lives. It's called the Fetch Foundation, and the Omaha Animal Medical Group basically donated 18 of these kits. They're basically rescue kits that will help provide oxygen, resuscitation, how to handle pets during fires. So I think that's really great. That will help save pets' lives. Speaking of saving pets' lives, and a lot of cat stuff this week, this is really, really cool. I kind of liked it a lot. There is a new, it's not out yet, it's actually going to be introduced in Japan this week. It's a new high-tech cat litter box that will analyze the urine. It's going to analyze the cat's weight when it walks into the box. So obviously it must be sitting on a platform. It knows the weight that's from the litter. And then when the cat walks in there, it's the box, the litter, plus now the cat. So it automatically tears or TARES. That means it balances out the weight of the box and the litter that's in the box. So when the cat walks in, it just gives you the difference. So now knowing how much a cat weighs and other health factors. And then what it does, it's going to send this information to your smartphone. So it's sort of like it's artificially intelligent cat box that will help you better keep a really close watch on your cat health. Cost-wise, it's going to be about $226 plus tax, being debuted in Japan this week. We will keep you abreast on that. That sounds like a really, really cool box. We've talked about this next story. Again, it's no surprise to me because we've talked about this many times and some of the concerns that I and others may have. And that is the service dog situation and the service dog abuse. And I don't mean obviously these dogs being abused. I mean the owners that are registering their pets as service dogs are abusing a really cool privilege. So here's this guy, David Riggs. He runs a nonprofit in Montana, which connects disabled veterans and service dogs. And I mean real service dogs. And he's trying to get a bill passed in legislature to penalize people trying to pass off their pets as service animals. And he really says something very true. Emotional support and therapy dogs provide a very genuine service, but they are not necessarily service dogs. And what's happening is there are so many establishments, airlines are changing their rules because they're being inundated with dogs. And then it's going to definitely affect the real service dog. So, and there's this great story. Speaking of real service dogs, here's an example of a real service dog. And that is in Oregon, there's a 6-year-old boy who has severe celiac disease. And his dog has been trained to sniff out the wheat and glutens to alert the kid that he can't eat that particular food. And the dog's name is Hawkeye. So that's great. So when you have a true, I think I'm gluten intolerant, or I'm trying to want to be gluten free, that's okay. But for some people, actually, it can cause some serious problems. And here Hawkeye is able to sniff it out. There's another story about xylitol. Xylitol is an artificial sweetener that can be very toxic to dogs. It can actually affect your kidney, but also what it does, it sort of tricks the body into thinking that there's enough sugar. And yet it's not usable sugar. It can't do what sugar needs to do with metabolic reactions. So what happens is these dogs become hypoglycemic, sometimes severely hypoglycemic to the point where it can affect muscles, including the heart muscle. So that's something to be aware of. Any kind of sugarless gum, sugarless mint, sugarless candy, anything sugarless, even sugarless peanut butter. You think peanut butter, you're going to give peanut butter, right? You're going to put on the spoon, you're going to give peanut butter, your dog's medication with peanut butter. That's okay. But if it's these new types of unsweetened peanut butter that has xylitol, it's not okay. So understand, look, it's xylitol, xylitol, and it is prevalent in many sugar-free products. And of course, we've known this before. Years and years ago, I was working very closely with the American Humane Association, now just called American Humane. And we knew this from studies back then, but it's sort of rearing its ugly head once again. And that is that a study linking child abuse to animal cruelty. And a number of things we learned, that little kids that abuse animals often grow up to abuse people. Some of the most famous serial killers known started out when they were little kids. They would torture and abuse animals. That's a problem. But also kids that are basically, if kids are abused, they will grow up and also start being a little bit cruel to animals, or a lot of it cruel to animals. So these are really important things. And the studies have shown that the animal cruelty in adults was much higher in kids that were abused as kids themselves. So something to keep in mind. Anyway, when we come back, we're going to talk about a case I had that kind of led me to think about this, how important it is to know your pets. And I mean really know them, because what we see when animals come in, our norm is more of a broad-based norm. So I can have an animal come in my hospital that looks totally normal to me, and yet owners are concerned about something. And I always listen to the owners. So it's so important to know what is abnormal, to know when your pet is not doing right. As I say, ADR ain't doing right. You need to know what is right. You need to know their day to day. So even if it's a subtle change, you can recognize it. And we're going to talk about Max when we come back. So don't go away. We'll be back after these short words from our sponsors here at Pet Life Radio. And you're here with Dr. Jeff. Don't go away.
Sit, stay. We'll be right back after a short pause. Well, 4 to be exact.
Not pumped about cleaning the litter box? Try World's Best Cat Litter Zero Mess, the litter that gives you 2 times better clumping and more odor control with less litter. That's right. You scoop once and you're done. No chiseling, no scraping, no crumbling, no problem. Looking for fast and easy litter box cleanup? Zero Mess. Try it. You're welcome in advance. Save $2 on World's Best Cat Litter. Visit www.saveonworldsbest.com.
Does your dog itch, scratch, stink, or shed like crazy? Come to Dynovite for help.
Order a 90-day supply of Dynovite.
Dynovite for life.
Pick up 2 tubes of Doggo Suds.
Get the 3rd tube free.
Peppermint, tea tree, lavender, Doggo Sud shampoo.
Made with all-natural coconut, jojoba, aloe. Great for healthy skin and soft, shiny coats.
But no itchy, harsh chemicals.
Lather up, rinse away.
Try Doggo Suds. Buy 2, get 1 free.
At Dynovite.com.
DINOVITE.com.
Let's talk pets
Let's talk pets
on Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
And welcome back. You're here live with Dr. Jeff Werber here on Pet Life Radio's Ask the Vets with Dr. Jeff. We have a guest in studio, Richard, who I get a note would like to ask a question. Somebody's got some guts out there. So, Richard, what can I do for you?
Hi, Dr. Jeff. We have a dog, a mixed breed. He's about 35 pounds. He's about 5 years old. And when he was a puppy, we used to take him to the beach because it gave him it was a dog beach and it allowed him to play with other dogs. But he got near the breaking waves and they frightened him. And now he's developed a phobia that he thinks water's going to attack him. So he won't even drink out of his bowl. He'll just sit there and bark. And we have to actually pick the bowl up and put it in front of his face and hold it while he drinks. And we can't break him of it no matter what we've tried to do. And I'm not sure how to get him over his phobia. Do you have any thoughts?
So one of the things that we want to do is first of all, this is not uncommon. One of my dogs once was running down the stairs, fell, tripped, and the last half of the staircase, he slid down. And all of a sudden, it wasn't his fault for being a stupid idiot and rushing down the stairs. It was, of course, the stairs' fault. So he did not go near stairs for a while. So the whole idea is when you have a case, is we have to sort of take little baby steps to entice him to drink. And so what I would do, is he eating his food? Will he eat his food?
He will eat his food. That's not a problem. It's just water.
Good. So what you're going to do is you're going to start feeding him in his food bowl, his food. And every meal, you're going to take away a little bit of the food and add more water. Basically, what you're going to start doing is very gradually diluting out his food to basically where maybe in about 3-4 weeks, it's going to be water with maybe a little broth. Maybe put some chicken broth in it, and then less chicken broth and less chicken until he's back to drinking water, where he knows that this is going to make him feel good. He likes it. It's tasty, etc. Now, as far as the beach, once he gets back into water, I would maybe when it rains, take him out, when you take the hose and just very gently, not like one of those aerator hoses that the water's going to shoot out, but just drip out and put it in front of him, let him start drinking out of the hose, maybe put it on his feet, again, very slowly, and always make it fun. So you have a treat in your hand, you take the hose, you put it in front of him, good boy, and give him his treat. So basically what you're doing is you're going to gradually desensitize him. And then by the treats, you're going to counter condition him where once again, he's going to like it. Now, as far as the beach, that will take a while, but you might want to get him out in the morning, early morning when there's, no waves at all, a little bit, water, again, his favorite ball, something to get him that he likes to chase, and, throw it in the shallow part of the waves where there are no waves yet. Maybe even a lake would be smarter before you start going back in the ocean to get him again will he swim in a pool? Or no?
No, he won't come anywhere near the pool.
Okay, so yeah, that's a tough. My dogs, it's the opposite. I can't get him out of the pool. But I think that if you had access, or just if he likes fetch and near some puddles, fetch where you can maybe hose the backyard down or something and have him chase the ball or play with his toy where there's a little water there, and see if you can slowly acclimate him to water. Typically when you have these issues, these fear and anxiety based, it's a long process. You have to take baby steps, and you may even need to cheat a little bit and see your veterinarian about maybe some medication to help just set the tone for him to relax enough to go through with it. But I think the first thing you do is start watering down his food. A little more water each time, a little less. And then when you get to where it's kind of just mostly a lot of water with the food itself and it's chunky, maybe substitute the water for some chicken broth and then eliminate the food altogether. Have them drink the chicken broth, and just be careful with the salt content in the chicken broth because you want to get these sodium free, because as we heard in the news, and I just did a piece for Inside Edition last week, that salt toxicity from dogs that are going to the beach, playing in the ocean, drinking a lot of the ocean water, and not having access to fresh water can be deadly. And it was in this case of a dog in Tampa. The dog's name was OG, and it died from salt poisoning, salt toxicity. So when you get to the broth part, make sure you use sodium-free broth. So try it. Takes time, simple baby steps, but you should be able to combat this.
That sounds good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So with our little time left, I want to give a quick thing. We mentioned about how important it is to know your dog. So Max comes in and looked totally fine. X-ray's normal, blood's normal. I palpated his abdomen, normal, and the owner complained that he was doing what he thought was vomiting, but in my history, it really turned out to be regurgitation, where he would just eat something and then open his mouth and it would come up like immediately. So no heaving first, and that's the difference between vomiting and regurgitation. Regurgitation usually means that the ingesta, whatever it is that's coming up, is usually just still in the esophagus or early in the stomach. It hasn't had really of a chance. The pyloric, the cardia portion of the stomach was still open, and the stuff just came right out without any fanfare, without a lot of work. It just, bah. So, but when we fed him, kept him in the hospital for a day or two, everything normal. He was normal. So we brought him over the weekend, and sure enough, on one occasion, I think it was once on Saturday, once on Sunday, he did the same thing again. So we do a barium study, which is a dye study. We put dye in the intestine, in the stomach, and watch it go through, and it passed. But the exit time out of the stomach was excessively long, over 22 hours. Normally, with liquid, the stomach can empty out in 2 to 4 hours. With the normal study, I would say 4 to 6 hours. But barium was still in the stomach. So now we thought, that's weird. It did pass. It got into the colon, but it took a long time to pass. Something's going on, maybe a motility disorder. So it was interesting. We ended up doing an exploratory and thinking there must be something in the stomach, because when the barium clump was there, it was there. We took some biopsy samples looking for some motility disorder, found nothing in the stomach itself. He did poop out some really weird stuff. So my thought is that he may have eaten something like a cloth, and it was in the stomach, blocking the entrance of ingesta from the esophagus into the stomach. And therefore, those episodes that they noticed of regurgitation were real. Then this thing finally, when we did the barium study, it was sort of out of the way. So the barium was getting into the stomach, but it sat there on top of whatever this was. And then finally, it started coursing its way out through the intestine. But the whole process took several days, probably 5 or 6 days. Very unusual. But the key here was that the owners knew that something wasn't right, because he had never done that, despite all of our normal tests, except when we finally saw the very delayed gastric emptying from the barium. But they were right. And even one thing to add to our puzzlement when it came to what is going on with this poor dog, we asked him, does he have the tendency to eat things like inanimate objects? And they said he won't eat inanimate objects, but when he has a toy or a bone, mostly a toy, he will rip it to shreds over time. And he has taken some of the coatings off of things. And that's when we saw what was going on in the stomach with the delayed gastric emptying, something that looked like the dye at least was sticking to, but the rest of the dye was going through. We said, this could be it. And that also could explain some, finally, days and days later, the strange stuff coming out of the intestine. It wasn't anything that blocked. There was never a blockage. It was just sort of maybe somewhat of an irritation. And by its position, stuff that was trying to come in the stomach couldn't. And therefore, it would explain this dog's regurgitation. So it's very important to know your pets. And the more you know, when you bring your pet in for something that's just not right, and the doctor starts asking you a bunch of questions about their habits, the more you know what they do, what they like to eat, what they don't eat. And that's very important, because if we have a dog who's having an issue and never has a problem, then we are less inclined to say, oh, well, he's not a toy or a bone because he never eats them. But this dog, it's sort of like, the light switch went off. And we said, this could be it. He must have ripped apart one of his toys, and this was the source of a problem. Fortunately, Max is now home, doing great. So, as I said, as you observe your dogs, make sure, or your cats, or any of your pets, just make sure you observe them very well, because sometimes when you see something that we don't, we have to look at it as important, because when it comes to your own pets, you know a lot more than we do. Anyway, thanks for joining me here on Pet Life Radio's Ask the Vets. Stay tuned. If you have any subjects that you are dealing with your pets, something that you just want to sort of maybe a little bit more of an education, a little bit of an explanation. If your veterinarian wants to do something and you don't understand why, those are the perfect questions for me. If you don't want to come on air and ask them live, you can always get a hold of me at drjeff@petliferadio.com. And we will talk about the problem. We will educate you, make sure you're listening on the next show. But I think it's good for you, and it's free. So have a great week, everybody. And once again, if you need to get a hold of me, you know how to do it. drjeff@petliferadio.com. Hopefully you'll have some questions for me, and we can talk to them about them next week. Have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.